Okay, so my classic intro, but I don't know what I'm gonna title this video. Just trying to get back to some folks. And I know it's been several days. I really kind of like lost count of the number of days it's been since my last upload. Finally feeling like I can talk about some stuff, but because after the relapse, and then it was sort of like this whole deal with be like day one, and then I'd go back and end up binging, and then okay, next day is day one, and then it would rinse and repeat, that sort of deal. I feel like I'm starting, rather, not trying to, but starting to get to the point where it's just sort of like naturally losing its appeal to me, which I'm not saying today is going to be the day that see, I'm getting some acne, but I need to shave. But I'm not saying today is like the day when it's just going to stop having that sort of attraction or draw for me. It depends upon like my mental, emotional state and how I'm feeling about things. Because if it gets to a point where I'm just like, sort of like bouncing off the wall in my mind, and I'm thinking and rehashing, the events of the last few months, or even stuff deeper, going further back, like, years, and drawing, connections or correspondences, or there's things happening, or I see stuff, or even I smell something that, a scent that, like, it could be a perfume or something that reminds me of someone or something or some event, or, whatever. Like, if I get into that sort of state of mind where, fapping would be like the only way out, and the pain isn't great enough to make me go, okay, I gotta quit, or I gotta take a break from this, or I need to take some time off from this, or I need to get away from this, whatever, I may end up going back. But I feel like I'm starting to sort of lose that sort of draw, that attraction to it, at least for the time being. So maybe a new streak is starting. We'll see. If I get through a few days to, a week or so, then I'll probably be able to say, okay, I'm on a new streak, that sort of a deal. But, man, it's kind of cold out here, or at least it's kind of cool. My back isn't feeling that great, but, like I said, I wanted to get back to some folks, in the empty Reddit cloud, and, I'm trying to remember who's recently commented, but I'm sure maybe Alex is out there, Dark Magician, etc., Geza, so on and so forth. The folks who have decided to stick around, even though I haven't been posting, even though I had relapse just a couple days after getting to 6 months, and all the things that's happened. But I've basically been trying to rebuild myself, reinvent myself, bounce back, cope with the state of affairs, so to speak. And I think one of the things that's kind of started to pull me in a more positive direction has been that I've essentially decided to like sit down and start just writing code. And it's like looking at all the things that have happened and going, okay, like I really need to reinvent myself. I really need to start doing certain things that people would just call doing the work, but to be more specific, working on or changing the things that I need to change in order to open up certain doors to myself and take off on a different path, and to be more concrete about it. Like I said, I'm gonna be more specific. A lot of it relates to the fact that I want to get into automation, the automation side of the biotech industry, getting into that, the actual like engineering side. And there's this one article on this website called Rave Robot, which is this website dedicated to like automation engineers and scientists in the field of automation and biotech. And one of the guys there, I think he might be the main contributor, or the guy who started the website, but he wrote this article, like, top 10 skills that you should develop or have to build a career in automation. And there have been some of them I've been working on the last 6 to 8 months, mostly like self-teaching, working through whatever materials I have on hand, and then once I got through that, then trying to sort of go off and make, original code. Because some of these, the service manual is obviously for literally fixing the machine, doing physical maintenance on it, for the most part. The user manual is sort of like, I'd say, 50-50. It does give you like example methods, or example like code or programs to write. And then the programmer's manual, see the name programmer's manual, obviously it's like, 100% or thereabouts, for the code, for the software. And I worked my way through all of that sort of stuff, and then I started creating some original methods based off of stuff that I, are inspired by. It's not, one-to-one correspondence, but me trying to sort of go, okay, like if I was going to write a program to do X, Y, Z, similar to a process that I've, maybe worked on or done something like that, okay, how would I write that? And then kind of trying to brainstorm and, okay, what things could I change, make it a little bit different, original, or whatever. There's maybe one or two more that I could think of that I, could sort of do something new with, but basically, like, that's been the majority of where I've been focused on, and I have a decent, sort of library built up of, methods or code that I've written. I need to write some readmes and organize stuff and that sort of thing. Maybe edit the code a little bit to put my name on it. Okay, it's the original creation, that sort of a deal. But there's other aspects that I can't really touch on right now, actually get involved in, get my hands dirty with, because it's stuff that like not only would I require like more like monetary resources, but some of it is just like I would have to somehow be getting like manuals and connections or contacts with people who work with the specific companies that make these, like, let's say and it might seem kind of odd, to folks who are not necessarily in the industry, but like environmental chambers, you might call them like a freezer or a fridge, things that have automated systems, like basically almost like cryogenic process control systems, that have run like almost like a PLC or programmable logic controller, sort of firmware, software, that sort of deal. There are companies out there that make those specific things, and if I were to be able to go through and like learn, okay, here's how to program this, here's how to maintain it, that sort of thing, to do actual service engineering on it, that'd be one area. But I can't, I don't have access to that stuff right now. Another one are automated bioreactors. I do know of a company one of the main companies that makes them, but again, I would have to get access to the material, the training, actually be able to work with one of the bioreactors, that sort of thing. There is training they do provide, but I'm not sure on cost right now, and money's kind of an issue, to put it lightly. But one of the fields, or one of the lists, and there's like I said, there's 10 of them in this article, but one of them is learning coding languages. And that's something that, like engineers in general, that's sort of like a big thing for engineers in general to know. They'll say, you don't have to master this, you don't need this or whatever, but it's like, it's almost like reading between the lines, you need to know this, and there's like a list of these languages: Python, R, Scala, Java, and I think C# is the other one. But it's like mastering at least one of them, if not multiple languages. They're referred to as powerful tools, but it's one of those things that, like, they'll say, oh, you don't need to, but you do need to. In part because a lot of what you end up doing, from what I can tell, what I've seen with, the engineers on these teams, is that they have to write code to do certain things. And it's not just the code that actually runs the machine, but it's like the code that will prepare, let's say, an Excel file or a CSV file with data in it that the machine needs to do its job. And it might need it in a certain format, but you only have, you have this like file with all this data, and you need it to, you need to have that file split up into, let's say, 5 or 10 or however many other files that are each associated with some sort of work, some sort of job that you need the machine to do. And, easiest way to do that is to, write like a script in Python or one of these other languages, to take that file and, let's say, split into however many, smaller files. So that's like an example, so like I said, they'll tell you, oh, you don't need to learn this, but it's sort of like, if you don't know how to do that and you got only 8 hours, a day, let's say, to, get all this stuff done, like, you're not going to get the work done you need to get done, even if you're super skillful at writing like macros on Excel, which is another thing that, you can do. But even if you're super skilled at that, it's going to take you like way longer, and you're not going to be efficient enough to, be doing the job. And they're principally not going to want to hire you. They're not going to tell you that. Some of them might, some companies might give you some leeway, but in my experience, like, if you're not able to walk in there and say, I know Python like the back of my hand, look at all the scripts I've written, look on my GitHub, blah, blah, blah. And on top of, all these methods that I've written, blah, 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 et cetera, so on and so forth. They, in all likelihood, like, won't even really give you like a second look, and a lot of it, what I'm seeing is just being able to get my foot in the door. Because, like, I remember several months ago, this other one company up here, I got a call from one of the recruiters, more like I think she's more of a sourcer. She's, doing a phone screening, and, had a conversation about the, job and all that sort of stuff. And it was like, it's almost like by the end of the call, like, I was kind of hoping, okay, they would call me back for an interview and I could, explain myself. I could talk about this and that, but I got screened out right away, and it sucked, but it was sort of one of those things where I almost feel like if they had called me 6 months later, that I would have probably gotten a lot further. I could probably have dropped the link to my GitHub, and they could have looked through some of the stuff and been like, okay, he's got a basis for some understanding here. We got someone we can work with. This is not going to be one of those having to hold this guy's hand through the whole process, blah, 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 sort of a deal. But, the last few days I've written 7 different Python scripts. One of them is for file handling. I'm going to have to go back and write some more file handling Python scripts, but the other thing I've been doing with Python has been going through this website called Rosalind.info, where they have a list of bioinformatics problems, and essentially the idea is to go and solve them with Python. So through solving them, you end up writing a script, and then I can put that on my GitHub. Leave comments in the code. Put some comments in the code explaining what this stuff does, that sort of thing. But I'll need to go through and start organizing those, and then go back and just keep picking my way through it, because like I said, I need to do this sort of stuff to reinvent myself. And other thing I've been doing is, and this may seem tangential or completely unrelated, but Java being one of the other languages and one of those that I have experience with, I basically gone back and revisited some old tutorials and basically rebuilding some old projects of mine that they're not related to bioinformatics or file handling. They're actually gaming projects. I rebuilt already a tower defense game in Java. There's one little issue in that, which, from one angle I'd look at it as a bug, but from another angle I could just treat it as a feature of the game, which basically is the case where this the first enemy unit that spawns on the map, you can kill it with your laser tower. You can destroy it with your laser tower, that sort of thing. Shoot it with the laser tower, pew pew pew, that sort of thing. But then it respawns like on the same location. It starts, keeps going and that sort of thing. And then the rest of them that come after that, they're just they that works like it's supposed to work for the rest of them. But I mean, I could probably go try and dig through the code again. I've tried already. I'm probably just gonna go reset the code to whatever I uploaded on to my GitHub, which is the original build, which has that issue, but it still was functioning. But I built that, and then I'm 2/3 of the way through building a 2D Minecraft style platformer. Got a bunch of nice features to it. Most of the stuff that you didn't expect from Minecraft or Minecraft type game. Just got one last tutorial in this series, and these tutorials are from like 8 or 9 years ago, so I'm having a lot of nostalgia of back when I was writing code for games and I was all fired up about that kind of stuff. But it's one of the things that keeps my attention, keeps my motivation going. And like with a lot of things, I feel like I'm revisiting the past and sort of filling in holes and sort of tying up loose strings. But this time around, and I wish I'd had this sort of mindset beforehand, but this time around when I build these things, I'm uploading the code to my GitHub. I can at least have some sort of repository sitting there, on the web. Because like honestly, like with the tower defense game, and also this, I also had gotten maybe halfway through building the Minecraft style 2D platformer, but I lost the code because I was building it on a loaner laptop my dad had loaned to me. It was like an old laptop from his work, and I think he had to take that back, but it was pretty much on its last legs. We're talking like the kind of laptop where I had to literally have the charger plugged into the wall and plugged into the laptop all the time, because it was like a trickle charge, at that point, where it was like essentially if for some reason the charge cord got detached, like the laptop would just shut off. And I had done all this coding and pixel art and all that stuff on there, but I lost the code because of that. I don't know if it's still sitting around my dad's office at home, or if he had to like send it back to the work. But yeah, I lost the code on that. It was something that I was working on back when I was involved with this failed startup project thingy that I had going with now a former friend of mine way back in the day. And so I've gone back and I've basically gone back to rebuild these things, and I'm uploading them to there. So I have or I will be putting comments in the code and writing a README and having all this stuff there. So I have that there, and maybe I'll then expand upon Java code into other things. But excuse me, it's at least something I'm getting done, and I'm sort of trying to fire up that part of my mind where it's like the code writing developer, software engineer aspect of things, because that's one of those things where and people would say this to me in the past, almost like, well, I'm sure there was this element of sarcasm to it, but they'd hear, oh yeah, I created this game over the summer in Java, wrote it in Java, blah blah blah, and they'd be like, oh, why didn't you major in software engineering? Why didn't you go into computer science? And that sort of thing. And it's sort of like, and this was back in college, so I can forgive them for this, because like most of us didn't necessarily have an entirely accurate picture of what it meant to be an engineer, what it meant to be out in industry, what an employer was actually looking for. Like myself, I didn't know about automated liquid handling robots. I didn't know that's what they did, in like the biotech industry. Like, okay, if you're an engineer, one of the things you have to know, whether you're in the process dev side or you're in the automation side, or you're, because process dev engineers, from what I understand, they kind of have to have some sort of overlapping knowledge with the automation team. It's just part of the process. They have to translate the, stuff that's been developed on process dev or tech dev side into scaled up automation manufacturing stuff. But I didn't know about that. I didn't know about automated liquid handling robots. And okay, if you really want to stand out and be having a good chance, solid chance of getting a job, as an actual engineer, okay, spend your free time writing methods for this, and have a little bit of a GitHub that, shows that you've done this sort of work, and obviously, like, some of it, I gotta forgive myself, and also, let my former classmates, sort of off the hook, if you will, on that. But a lot of it is just the fact that we didn't have an actual, like, industrial, engineering class. And when I say industrial engineering, I don't mean like in terms of the field or the major, but like an applied sort of engineering lab class where it's like, okay, we got this, scaled down automated liquid handling robot. It's kind of like the academic suite. It's the academic version. It's not on the level of something they'd use in industry, but it's a smaller model, basic software, and your projects are to write code for this and, to do this process or whatever, and you kind of work through basic exercises, and then at the end of the semester, build an original method, that sort of thing. Like, they didn't have something like that, but the sort of interesting or the funny thing is that and I saw this in retrospect with some of the folks who were able to actually get decent jobs out of undergrad. Was they did a minor in computer science or software engineering, and they took some classes, in this sort of stuff. The rest of us it was kind of like, you get to self-teach, but it's almost like there's that aspect even with chemical engineers and like biotech or bioengineers that you have to almost teach yourself up to the level, or you're expected to sort of know. And it's almost like, even though you're not majoring in it, you kind of have to know it's sort of like the unknown sort of aspect of your skill set that you have to have a certain level of proficiency with computer engineering, software engineering, programming, that sort of deal, software development. You might not have to be like, the virtuoso expert on it, but you got to know a decent amount, maybe intermediate level, let's say intermediate level, to the extent that you can like write some of these programs yourself. And so it's almost like my interest in this as, wanting to be a game developer originally, or doing that on the side, game development, it actually sort of gave me a basis that I can, jump back into later on. But while it may not be 100% related, just having completed projects on my GitHub and getting myself fired up again to go do that sort of stuff and feel like, okay, I'm reinventing myself, I'm making myself anew, that's really helpful for me. And honestly, like, I have to take advantage of this time that I have right now to do this sort of stuff, because back when I was working, it was like I had maybe 4 or 5 hours each day, and while I did get a decent amount of stuff done, it was way less efficient and effective, because I was already super exhausted. And if you're in that kind of time crunch where it's like 4 to 5 hours and you have a class, you're having to sort of like pick and choose what you're going to be able to do with your time. And obviously when you're taking that class, it's almost like that becomes the priority. But then again, it's sort of like, it's not giving you that immediate tangible skill set of, okay, like, I can write this kind of code to do this sort of a problem, or solve this kind of problem, to do this task. As opposed to if you're sitting there writing Python code, or you're working with MATLAB, or you're working with R or Java or C# or whatever, But I think after I get this one done, I'm either going to go and revisit another gaming project, because I created a C++ breakout game, clone, again back in the day, and I found the tutorials again, and probably like just work through that. It was a relatively like quick series. I think it was like, I'm trying to remember how many. Was it 5 or was it 9? I think it was like, it all added up to an equivalent of like 1/3 of this Java series, because this Java series that well, both of them really, both of them were like or are like 3-part series, and they're each part is like 2 hours long, and it's kind of a slog, but if you're motivated enough, you can get through it. The C++ one, it was like, I think it was 20 minutes per episode, and it was relatively simple, but I might go back and do that, or I might pivot back to some more Python, or maybe C#. I'll have to see what I'm going to do, but I need to be expanding my GitHub rapidly. I'd like to get a significant amount built up this week and then next week, and I gotta get these checks I have. I gotta get them deposited. Money's a bit less than I thought it was going to be because of taxes, but I also have some stock I could sell if I needed to. I'm going to try and hold off on that. But yeah, and I I need to set myself up, pay for it, to have those certification classes set aside, have them on my calendar, because it's like, these are the kind of things I absolutely positively need to have done, because it's just it's one of those spots in life that I'm at where it's like, it's almost like it's now or never, and I gotta make this leap. If I end up in this position again, like, dude, like, I mean, it's kind of like, I think Joshua Flukas talked about this, where it's like, you have to, you have almost like, you have like 2 paths. You have the corporate, man, the company man or company gal, company girl, company woman path, where you're all about like working for somebody else. And then you have the other path, who's more like self-employed, doing your own thing, that sort of deal. And it's like, if you're gonna, and for most people, the company path is really the way that you're gonna be able to get ahead, at least for a time. Like some of us, maybe, okay, I'm gonna work and be frugal, be minimalist, get my finances straightened out, create, another source of income, blah, blah, blah. Get myself to that point rapidly enough so that I can exit stage left, have my nice nest egg or whatever. But even if you're planning on, on sort of getting out of the rat race, like, likelihood is at some point in time you're going to be working at a company somewhere, and you're going to be doing that sort of thing. You're going to be dealing with all the positives and negatives, the stresses, the strains, the ups and downs, pros and cons of that. And of course there's a self-employed part, but I think for most people, like, they kind of pivot from being employed by somebody else to being self-employed. They don't necessarily dive right into that. You don't really have like that sort of safety net usually starting off. But if you're on the company path, it's kind of like this whole idea of making yourself as indisposable as possible, making yourself as irreplaceable, whether that means getting an advanced degree, getting all these certifications, whatever. And if you're just a manufacturing associate, especially in the last job that I was at, like, you are replaceable, you are disposable. If there's any problem or any issue, like, they can just get rid of you and hire somebody new, hire somebody fresh out of college, or somebody who never went to college, just is sort of a high school graduate who maybe they somehow finagle their way into a technician job like that, manufacturing associate, some other company, and they got a year or 2 under their belt, even 6 months or so. You're gone like that. I mean, they don't need to put up with you. But if you're like this, you know, highly trained, specialized engineer who has these certifications and perhaps even a master's degree, plus years of experience doing that kind of work, you're not irreplaceable, you're not indisposable, but you are less than that. You're significantly less, you know? And it's such that they may be willing to think twice or even thrice before getting rid of you. They may even be willing to come to the table and be like, okay, we understand the situation here. We're willing to do X, Y, Z in order to keep you, blah, blah, blah. But if, like I say, you're just a manufacturing associate, like, there's nothing really special about you. There's nothing really, you know, irreplaceable or indisposable about you. You know, there's probably 20 other people out there who maybe even have more experience, yada, 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 who are more than willing to jump in there and take your spot, you know? And I can't let myself stay in this spot, you know? And I'm not just talking about being unemployed or worrying about money. I mean just like being vulnerable to that kind of stuff. And in the next few months, bouncing back, the plan is not only to get another job, but I really need to be taking this time to do all this extra stuff outside of that, such that I can really make that leap. And if that means that for a few months I might be unemployed, but I'm like knocking these things down, you know, I'll have to do this as fast as I can before not only before the money runs out, but before the opportunities run out, you know. And I will have to be starting to apply right now, today or tomorrow, that sort of thing. Edit my resume, change things up, that sort of deal. Prepare for the questions as to, you know, what happened at the last place. I'm just going to tell them that I'm not going to go into sort of, you know, side stuff, which, stuff that if I think about, I do regret certain things, about how things went down, how I handle stuff. But I think that's kind of a topic for another video. I don't want to discuss that in this video, and I'd hope that, you know, people would, if they're hearing me out there this far into the video, that they would, you know, make comments that, you know, wouldn't touch on that. At least, you know, save that for the next video, essentially, if that's, you know, something you guys want to respond to or talk about. But, you know, other than all the side stuff, the things that, you know, the sort of surface details, the thing that I would tell them is that, you know, I didn't see that job as helping me, you know, make that sort of advancement in my career, you know. I really wasn't learning anything. I really wasn't growing. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons why a lot of the other stuff got in the way. You know, why that became such an issue, because it was like, okay, like, you know, obviously, like, I'm not wholeheartedly in this job. I really started looking at it as just their freaking paycheck, and, you know, okay, great, you know, every 2 weeks when I get paid, I get a little bit of a, you know, mental emotional boost, if you will, sort of self-esteem boost, or you know, almost like a dopamine, you know, hit, if you will, from, okay, I got this money, and then being able to send out the $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever to these, you know, student loans or car loan or whatever. You know, I would get that sort of return on that and go, okay, yeah, I feel a bit lighter financially. I feel a little bit better financially, and, you know, life-wise and that sort of thing. But, like, career-wise, it was just like, you know, after that faded away, which it faded away pretty freaking quickly, like almost a moment, you know, after I'd sent out the bills or whatever. I mean, after that, it would just be like, you know, almost like back to reality, mister, you know, this job sucks. And you see that guy who sits, you know, corner from you, or, you know, like one seat over next to the girl. Yeah, you got to go deal with that guy, and he's going to be trying to rip you a new one and knowing down every little thing he can about, oh, what can I report to the supervisor on this guy about? And then the exhaustion and the anxiety and blah blah blah. It's like, you know, that kind of a job. That's really, I think, and again, I'll get into the stuff about myself that I feel that I need to change and work on, personality wise, psychologically, spiritually, whatever. Those aspects. But as far as the job itself is concerned, and like, that sort of deal, like that, I feel is so much of why it's almost like subconsciously I was almost like looking for another reason as to why I should stay there, why I should be happy here, why I should have, a good mental state or whatever at this job. That's why all those sort of things kind of, moved front center and became this big freaking issue, and why all that stuff kind of why precipitated the job loss, essentially. But anyways, and I'm not sure I'm going to title this. I wanted to respond in part because Empty Red Cloud, leaving that comment, referring to me as like, inspiration, and dedicating his 6-month plus Nofap streak to myself, and it's taking inspiration from me making it that far, that sort of a deal. Wanted to respond to that. I wanted to respond to anybody else who's been watching my videos or commenting. I haven't really been following my channel for the last several days, but or a few days or whatever. But anywho, that's it for me right now. Probably just gonna go grab some food. I'll get back on the diet. I made yesterday my cheat day, but today just getting back on the diet, and take a hot shower. Probably go to bed finally. I've been up all night. And then maybe when I wake up, later in the afternoon or so, I'll get back onto the finishing up that project, and upload the code to my GitHub, and figure out what I'm going to do next. So, anywho, I'll see you folks around. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.